So we appreciate so much Nicholas being with us. So Nicholas is representing an organization called FAIR. It's the longest immigration policy organization here in America. It's been in existence for 45 years. Is that correct, Nicholas?
That is correct.
And 3 million members. And he is one of the leaders now. He's located in Washington, D.C., and we're so grateful to have him with us. So we will now turn the time over to Nicholas Softy representing FAIR.
Thank you, Arlene. I totally appreciate it. I just have to say, you've been wonderful during my entire process of booking. You've just been really accommodating and hospitable. And your concern, we talked briefly over the phone, your concern for this very important topic was very enlightening and refreshing. I talk to groups across the country and, people just bring random people on to their clubs just to speak, just to pass up time. But you showed a great interest in this important topic. And it gave me a inspiration. Your passion drives my passion. So I just want to say thank you. And I want to say hello to all the members that are here today. I know we had some technical difficulties, but it all worked out. We're here today. It's being recorded. So if anybody wants to see it, they can see it in the future. And then, we'll take it from there. Like Arlene said, I am Nicholas Softy. I am the Field Outreach Manager for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. A little bit about my role at FAIR. My role at FAIR is to promote FAIR's initiatives across the United States. That's all 50 states. And that's to develop good, productive relationships with activists, legislators, and the general public on critical immigration-related issues. So, what is FAIR? As Arlene said, FAIR is America's largest and oldest 501c3 nonpartisan, nonprofit immigration policy organization. Our focus is to educate the public on the negative impact of uncontrolled immigration on things like our nation's security, economy, workforce, education, healthcare, environment, things of that nature. At FAIR, my apologies. There we go. At FAIR, we believe that unchecked immigration threatens national sovereignty, generates an unnecessary strain on societal resources, threatens public safety, impedes social cohesion, burdens taxpayers, and displaces the American worker, while also threatening national security as well. We've done this for about 45 years, and we have 3 million members across the United States, as Arlene mentioned. We've had FAIR officials testify before Congress hundreds of times. We've been on pretty much every major media outlet doing interviews and offering commentaries, all over for 45 years. Our reports and opinions are regularly published in major periodicals all the time. And if you'd like to learn more, you can check us out at fairus.org, or you can follow us on social media. At the end of my presentation, I'm going to have my email. Please feel free to send me an email. I'd love to connect with you and talk more about this very important issue. Okay. Oh, a little bit ahead. We're going to talk a little bit about that guy in a second. And as we all know, immigration is a top issue in America. It was the number one issue in America prior to the Iranian missile strikes, and that's really taking the news right now. But immigration remains pretty much trending as always like the top issue in the country for the most part, because it touches on every single aspect of American life. And it's important considering that about 18.6 million illegal aliens are currently residing in the United States. It's essential to understand how this massive population of people interacts with American citizens, our history of immigration, and the various American institutions that we hold dear. With deportations ongoing and executive orders being signed at a dizzying pace right now, an unprecedented pace, and violent protests raging across the country as we're doing this presentation right now, especially in California, Los Angeles, where everybody, is closer than I am, being in DC. It's important to gain a clear understanding of American immigration policy in its totality. And with that being said, I'm going to take everybody here on a critical journey. We're going to talk about the unprecedented failures of the previous administration under former President Joe Biden. We're going to have an analysis of what's happening in the current day administration, even though it's early on in the administration. We're going to talk about some things that have happened, some things that are expected to happen. And then I'm going to outline FAIR's immigration reform agenda for the Trump administration moving forward and the 119th and 120th Congress, things that some actionable steps they can take to make some meaningful change in America. Okay. So let's start with the chaos we just emerged from. Over the past 4 years, the Biden administration presided over an unmitigated disaster at our borders. The numbers don't lie. Illegal immigration grew to crisis proportions. On his first day in office, Biden halted construction of the southern border wall and ended Trump's highly effective Remain in Mexico policy. Instead, Biden rolled out the welcome mat by expanding parole programs and weakening ICE's ability to deport dangerous criminals like MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. More than 10 million illegal aliens were encountered in the Biden era. That includes over 500,000 unaccompanied minors. For example, to put this in perspective here, during a 12-month period under Biden, CBP encountered a stunning 3.2 million illegal aliens. That marks the highest level of immigration in American history by far. That's about 7,000 border crossers or border encounters per day, and about 250,000 illegal aliens being shuffled into big cities like Los Angeles, Sacramento, Chicago, New York City every single month. Okay. The catch and release policy of the Biden administration let the vast majority of these aliens into the country. In fact, a report by the House Judiciary Committee found that less than 1% of these illegal aliens were deported. Instead, President Biden's administration just granted them work visas to flout federal immigration law and instead of deporting them, they gave them pathways to citizenship, which goes against federal law. Approximately 2 million illegal alien gotaways evaded border agents and gained unfettered access into the interior of the United States. That's the known gotaways, by the way. Keep that in mind. We don't know how many unknown gotaways there actually are. So that's why, populational studies of total illegal aliens in America vary drastically. FAIR, we believe it's around 18.6 million. I've heard estimates of 30 million, 25 million. I've heard less. Some people say 15 million. That's why, because we don't know how many people evaded border agents and gained unfettered access into the nation. And I just want to stress, we don't know who these people are. We don't know what their intentions are or where they're currently residing. So obviously that's a national security problem. Roughly 400 aliens on the terror watch list were encountered between ports of entry, along with thousands of special interest aliens posing potential security threats. Here's a couple examples of, terror problems that we've experienced because of this. In 2024, a Lebanese national was apprehended near El Paso, Texas. He claimed ties to Hezbollah and stated he was heading to New York to, quote, make a bomb. Recently, 2 Chinese nationals were charged with smuggling a fungus classified as a potential agro-terrorism weapon into the United States. The fungus causes diseases in crops like wheat and barley, and it could devastate American agriculture and pose health risks to both humans and livestock. The FBI and CBP intercepted the attempt, and those individuals are being charged with conspiracy, smuggling, false statements, and visa fraud. We must never forget 9/11. And we must never forget that the terror hijackers that killed nearly 3,000 people on that day were foreign nationals who abused and exploited the loopholes in our immigration system. 3 of those 9/11 hijackers were here illegally, and 2 of them had previous immigration violations. In fact, nearly 650,000 criminal aliens with criminal charges ranging from sexual assault to murder were allowed to roam freely under the previous administration. This is terrible. Let's talk a little bit about fentanyl, which is a big problem in California. A lot of, unfortunately, drug-addicted individuals residing in your state as we speak. From 2021 to 2023, fentanyl traffic through our porous borders, both northern and southern, killed approximately 200,000 Americans. That means every day, around 200 people in the United States die from fentanyl poisoning. According to the DEA, it is the leading killer of Americans aged 18 to 45. These are the youth of our nation. These are the people who will lead our country moving forward. And they're dying at unprecedented rates due to poisoned drugs, poisonings, mass poisonings. And it's obviously a problem that needs to be addressed by our lawmakers. And what caused this? You know, all these problems we're hearing about under the previous administration. What caused this? It's simple. It's policy choices rooted in weakness, incompetence, and an outright refusal to enforce federal immigration law. It is malice of the highest order. And what is the result of this, right? We hear the cause. What is the result? It's a colossal historic influx of migrants that overwhelmed border security, strained our communities, burdened American taxpayers, and murdered American citizens, which we're going to be talking about shortly. Okay, so now let's talk to the present day. We did a little bit of past, now we're going to do the present day. And we're seeing a little bit of a bold reset with the current administration. We're seeing a flicker of hope when in terms of immigration policy. On election day, immigration was a key issue that swept Trump and J.D. Vance to electoral success. In virtually every single poll, unchecked immigration ranked as a top concern to American voters. President Trump wasted no time in slamming the brakes of the border crisis and restoring order to America's immigration system, which was much, much, much needed. I have a couple of executive orders outlined here. I'm going to briefly go over each one. One, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border. This authorizes the deployment of military personnel to support border security efforts. This includes things like logistics, detention space, and migrant alien transportation. The Supreme Court was clear in the case Trump v. Hawaii that the president possesses the authority to close the borders in response to a crisis. So, by declaring the southern border a crisis, the president does have authority to close the borders. Two, President Trump suspended the physical entry of aliens involved in a, quote, invasion across the southern border. This order shuts down the open door madness that we saw under the previous administration that was basically a free-for-all for the world to exploit. And for there's billions of people in the world, and they came in unprecedented numbers into our open borders without proper vetting, of course. By closing the border, we've seen a massive reduction in border encounters. For example, CBP announced that we just came back, we just came from May. We're in June now, but these are May numbers. In May of last year under Biden, there was 117,905 encounters in May, right, of last year. Now that we've shut the border, we've only seen 8,725,000 encounters of May of this year. That's 110, almost 110,000 less encounters in a single month. That is massive. And it's all because we have a president currently that is willing and able to shut the border so we can address the problem we have in our country, to close the spigot so we can, address all these all these immigrants that we have in the country now. We can see who needs to be deported, get them out. We actually have right now what's the term? A net zero immigration. We're actually currently deporting more people than we're importing. But I'm going to talk about that briefly. 3, President Trump terminated the CBP One app and various parole programs. Now that Now that the CBP One app is done, the CBP Home app has been used to nearly for around 9,000 or so aliens have used that app to self-deport back to their home countries. DHS has reported that, speaking of deportations here, that about 207,000 illegal aliens have been deported in its totality since January 20th of 2025. That's good, but we need to get those numbers up if we're going to address the massive amount of people that we've seen cross the border under the previous administration and other previous administrations prior to Biden. By terminating the CHNV parole program, if anybody's familiar with that, that was a parole program used by the Biden administration to bring in, to parole in Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. By terminating this program, that means that about 500,000 aliens are now subject to deportation. Also, too, this is off topic here. I don't know if anybody's been watching the news, but today, Monday, as we're speaking now, the Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 ruling that President Trump can resume deporting aliens to third countries. So that's big. You know, that was blocked. That was given a nationwide injunction by a district judge. I believe it was in Boston, or Massachusetts, but don't take my word for it. I'm not entirely sure, but it was a district judge, a federal judge nonetheless. But the Supreme Court just ruled that the president has the authority to deport these individuals to third countries. So that's massive. We're going to, that was a big reason why the deportations were slow. And now that the Supreme Court has ruled on it, we can get those deportation numbers hopefully moving in the upward trajectory, get these individuals out of the country, back to their home countries, repatriate these individuals. And I want to just say here, under the Biden administration, immigration parole it operated as a shadow amnesty system. According to federal law, as outlined in the Immigration and Nationality Act, parole must be granted on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefits. Former President Biden and former DHS Secretary Mayorkas perverted this program and granted parole to over 2 million illegal aliens through wholesale executive fiat. That's an amnesty. In fiscal year 2023, Mayorkas granted a whopping 1.3 million paroles in a single year. That's the highest ever by far. To put this in perspective, on average, Obama granted only 15,000 paroles per year, and Trump 1.0 in his first term only granted approximately 5,000. So we're seeing 5,000 under Trump and 1.3 million under Biden. Massive differences here. And upon entry, these illegal aliens would have access to taxpayer benefits like Medicaid, Obamacare, Social Security, food stamps, SSI, and federal student aid benefits. It would also act as a pathway to a green card because these individuals would be classified as lawful permanent residents. So they can, get things like, government jobs. They get all the access, all the benefits that green card holders have as permanent residents. They would be granted a pathway to that end goal, and it would be harder to, deport those individuals because they're permanent. So that's obviously a problem, and we're happy that the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump is within his authority to rescind that parole program. So that's a good thing. 4, President Trump reinstated his Remain in Mexico policy from his first administration. This is an obvious winner from his first term. It shifts the burden of housing asylum seekers to Mexico so that, that they don't have to come here. Because, once they're in, they're hard to get out. It's easier to keep them at the door. But once they go through the door and they enter the interior of the United States, there's issues of due process and such. It's harder to get these individuals out. Also, too, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with it, but the immigration-related court case backlog is about 7 to 8 million cases. No, it's not 7 to 8 million cases. My apologies. It's around 3 to 5 million cases as it stands right now. That means that an alien would not see a courtroom for 7 to 8 years. So that's what I'm trying to say. We get these, it's easy to get them in, but once they're in, they need their court case, they need their immigration court hearing so that they're ruled deportable. They have to go. That would be 7 to 8 years. So not good. Border Patrol, due to this Remain in Mexico policy, Border Patrol is currently reporting that approximately 279 migrant encounters per day, whereas 1 year ago, only 1 year ago, under Biden, there were roughly 4,297 encounters per day. So that's about a 93.5% drop in encounters just by this one policy. Recently, on June 17th, if I'm not mistaken, Tom Homan announced on X, that there were only 95 encounters in a single day across the entire border. That is the lowest number ever recorded in American history. So big changes we're seeing, great changes we're seeing. And I want to say this here. This Remain in Mexico policy is good to keep people out because a lot of these people that come in and claim asylum, these are bogus claims and they're ruled as such by an immigration court. In other words, the Remain in Mexico policy keeps bogus asylum claimants out of our country while their stories get sorted out. And this is big because in certain jurisdictions, the denial rate of individuals claiming asylum is up to 90%, which of course clogs up the courts further. We have to get these bogus claims, if they're bogus, out, get their stories out so that we can get the people that are already here. Like I said, that backlog of 3 million cases, get them seen, get them out, get rid of the clogging so that we can open the borders once again and let people in to be vetted properly. Very important. Okay. And President Trump also signed an executive order which prevents taxpayer funds from supporting illegal immigration. This ensures that federal funds are not used to provide expensive benefits to illegal aliens. It's a classic example of the power of the purse. The impact of this decision would be, so unfortunately, I don't know if anybody's familiar, but this order was blocked, another blocking by a district judge, and is not currently in effect due to a court's injunction. The legal battle is continuing, but if it does go through and the Supreme Court does rule that Trump can do this, this is a great, great idea because it targets the financial incentives for illegal immigration. It pressures states and localities that align with more sanctuary policy frameworks that if they don't align their standards with federal immigration enforcement parameters, they're going to lose federal funds. So, either comply or lose money. And a lot of these, these jurisdictions, they need federal funds to operate because they're operating in debts and deficits. So they need that federal money to operate. So that's very big. So hopefully it's overruled and we can get on with that. In addition, I'm going to go through briefly some things here. President Trump's executive orders prepared Guantanamo Bay to be used as a detention center. He expanded deportation and detention infrastructure, expanded expedited removal nationwide, which is big. I'm not going to talk about it here, but if anybody has a question about that, it's massive. And the media should be talking about that more because that's big. It ended temporary protected status extensions. That's also big. We can talk about that. He ended automatic employment authorization renewals. That's also big. There's so many big things. He designated the transnational criminal organizations like the Mexican drug cartels, which, by the way, controlled our southern border under the previous administration. If anybody's been to the border, I highly recommend going to the border to see it for yourself, what the Border Patrol is dealing with. I've been to the border myself, and I have a lot of stories at the border. If anybody has any questions about that, I could be happy to elaborate. But President Trump declared, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And President Trump declared English the official language of the United States of America. So big things are coming. Right. Big things are coming, which, by the way, promotes social cohesion. We can talk about that also. Okay, birthright citizenship. This is going to be the most constitutionally consequential, probably, so far it is, but it's probably going to be the most constitutionally consequential domestically of all of President Trump's executive orders. In California, there are roughly 1,147,000 US born children of illegal aliens. President Trump's EO would deny birthright citizenship to illegal aliens and temporary visa holders. So only American citizens and permanent residents would be granted that privilege. The qualifier phrase in the 14th Amendment, Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, implies a deeper allegiance or legal obligation to the United States beyond mere physical presence. This is FAIR's position on the issue. The 14th Amendment, we believe, has been interpreted beyond the scope of its original meaning and therefore undermines national sovereignty. Simply put, if we grant citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil, we lose control of who becomes an American. The 1898 case, which is the judicial foundation, the legal precedent for this, is United States v. Wong Kim Ark. And I want everyone here to note this, that the Wong Kim Ark decision addresses the citizenship question of legal permanent residents, not illegal aliens. Not illegal aliens. The Supreme Court has not ruled on the citizenship legitimacy of this class of people, i.e., illegal aliens. So this is destined for a date with the Supreme Court. I believe the Supreme Court has, is in talks. They're having their conversations about it as we speak. Hopefully, there's a ruling in the coming months. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it shakes out. But hopefully, they rule in our favor, because that would be big. And I want everybody here to know historically, at the time of the passage of the 14th Amendment in 1866, historical debates show that the amendment was about freed slaves in the wake of the Dred Scott decision, not illegal aliens or birth tourists gaming the system. Birth tourism is not just a loophole, it's a national security nightmare. Here's a little example. A foreign national flies in, they have a baby, they secure a US passport for a child that might grow up loyal to another nation. The implications are absolutely frightening. Think of things like espionage, divided allegiances, and a backdoor for hostile actors. We saw this in the anti-ICE raids. We're seeing this across the country. Protesters waving flags of nations of which they're supposed to not, Mexican flags or Honduran flags or El Salvadorian flags, wherever they come from, they're supposed to be Americans. They're supposed to have a love for America. And, if you watch interviews of these people, they'll say straight up that this country is on stolen land. This country is an illegitimate nation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it begs the question, is their bodies are in America, right? Their bodies are here. On paper, they're citizens, but is their heart, is their soul, is their spirit, is that American? They're evident, as what I've just said here, we're seeing now, the evidence is no, they are not. They have a divided allegiance. Their bodies are here, but their hearts are in their home countries. And the question is, if you ask a lot of these protesters, if there is a war between the country of your ethnicity, let's just say Mexico, and America, who would you fight? Whose military would you join and fight alongside? A lot of these protesters will openly tell you, I would fight on behalf of Mexico because that's where my family is. That's where my history is. That's my ethnicity. That's a problem in our country. That's a domestic issue that we need to resolve. And hopefully, the Supreme Court rules on the 14th Amendment, and that can get that resolved, that the people that are here in our nation are American citizens in their heart, in their soul, their Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is something that should be more than just words we speak. It's something that should reside in the very essence of our being as Americans. Personally, as a U.S. Navy veteran myself, I put my money where my mouth is. I enlisted to join the United States Navy. I was willing to fight for our nation. The question is, are these people willing to do the same? And you be the judge of that. Okay, and we talk about some examples, some history here. Our FAIR's position on this is evidenced by, like I said, historical debates. And here's an example of one of the framers of the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment, Senator Jacob M. Howard. And he said this on the topic. Now, mind you, one of the framers of the amendment, he said, of course, quote, "This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons." So one of the framers openly says here, quote, "This is not supposed to include foreigners and aliens." Right there. So right out of the horse's mouth. He even clarified the meaning of the term subject to the jurisdiction thereof by saying, quote, "The word jurisdiction as here employed," meaning in the amendment, "ought to be construed so as to give a broad and liberal interpretation," meaning that the persons referred to must be, and this is what I'm talking about here, what I was just saying, must be completely within the jurisdiction and owing direct and immediate allegiance to the United States. They must be completely within the jurisdiction, not just born here. They must be completely. Mind, body, and soul. Very important. And here's the bottom line. I want everybody to just take this away. Automatic citizenship for the children of illegal aliens and temporary visa holders rewards bad behavior. It's an incentive. It's a prize for breaking our laws. And it anchors unlawfully present individuals here at the taxpayer expense. Okay. Here's an immigration reform victory. The Laken-Riley Act. Actually, FAIR was actually at the signing of the Laken-Riley Act. So we were invited by the current administration to go, and we were very happy to do so. It's a great act. It was signed into law January 29th of this year. The bill was named after Laken-Riley, the 22-year-old Georgia nursing student who was brutally murdered by an illegal alien Tren de Aragua gang member who was released under New York City's sanctuary policy. This is after he'd been arrested for child endangerment and motor vehicle license violations. So this individual was obviously a threat, and he was allowed to be released due to NYC's permissive sanctuary policies. I'm sure everybody here on the call knows about sanctuary because we all know that California is a sanctuary state. But we're going to talk about that. I have a whole little thing on California. Don't worry, it's coming. The bill requires the detention of inadmissible aliens for things like theft-related crimes, DUIs, etc., certain things like that. And it also requires that DHS issue detainers and transfer aliens from local law enforcement into ICE's custody, which is big. It also grants state officials legal standing to sue the federal government due to harm inflicted on their states or citizens from the failure to enforce federal immigration law. So that's something everybody in this call should maybe consider when you're calling your state officials. If you see damage and harm inflicted on the state or citizens of the state due to a failure to enforce federal immigration law. Something to consider. If anybody's interested in that, please contact me. We have lawyers on our staff that would be happy to assist you in any type of litigation on that matter. The Laken-Riley Act is a great step in the right direction, but Congress should build on it. We need to build on it. It's not enough. We should do more. And speaking of doing more, let's talk about the big bill of the day, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That's right now should be I believe it's going to be voted in the Senate this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good. We'll see how the Senate rules on it. Here's some things in terms of immigration that are important about this bill. It gives $46.5 billion for border barriers. This includes 700 miles of border wall and over 1,600 miles of other barriers. That includes things like river barriers and such along the Rio Grande. It allows for $45 billion for detention resources, 14.4 billion for transportation and removal operations. We all know here that the removal of illegal aliens is an expensive process. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So by giving money to the government so that they can do that process makes that process much easier. The bill also limits Obamacare tax credits, Medicare, and SNAP benefits to lawful permanent residents. So legal aliens would be exempt from that. And it also, this is something also the media should be talking more about. It's so important. It establishes a remittance tax. A remittance, if anybody's not familiar, is money that an immigrant makes in America and sends back to their home countries. This bill would establish a remittance tax of 3.5%. I personally think that tax should be higher. I'm just saying, I think it should be upwards of 10%, but the bill says 3.5%. Considering that $150 billion are sent out of the nation in the form of remittances every single year, that means that we would generate in this country $5.25 billion every single year. So we would make money finally off of the remittances that we weren't making money for so long. And the bill, this is even better, the bill outlines that money would be given back to taxpayers as tax credits. So we would see a direct benefit from those gains, which is good. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about our favorite state, right? The sanctuary state of California. Sanctuary state of California, which is unfortunately one of the worst states in immigration. Where it's up there with, it's probably the worst state, but it's a competition with Colorado, New York, and Illinois. Terrible state in terms of immigration. According to FAIR's research, there's roughly over 3.2 million illegal aliens currently residing as we speak in the state of California. That means that nearly 10% of the state's population is illegally present within the state. So 1 out of every 10 Californians, well, I don't consider them Californians, but 1 of 10 people in California are there illegally. So think about that whenever you're going through the traffic. I know I've never been to Los Angeles, but Los Angeles traffic is notorious for being congested. Imagine if 1/10 of the traffic was gone. It'd be a lot easier to make commutes. Just saying. In 2017, the California Values Act, SB 54, granted statewide sanctuary status. We all know what that does. That just prohibits state and local law enforcement from asking about anyone's immigration status. It prohibits state and local law enforcement from sharing information with immigration authorities, federal immigration authorities. And it prohibits state and local law enforcement from using any of their money or personnel to, quote, investigate, interrogate, detain, detect, or arrest persons for immigration enforcement purposes. So, not good. In California, currently, illegal aliens are afforded a variety of benefits, taxpayer-funded benefits, everybody in this call. This includes access to Medi-Cal healthcare services, which Governor Newsom has talked about revamping because he's openly admitted that it's ridiculously expensive and it's going to bankrupt the state. So hopefully he reverses course and pushes for that. Access to the Cash Assistance Program for Immigrants program, CAPI, I think it's called CAPI, which provides cash benefits of up to $1,599.07 per individual in the state on a monthly basis. So that's not good. Illegal aliens have access to driver's licenses, which we can. Arlene, I have a question. To vote in California, I did some research. I've never voted in California, but you just have to. One of the allowable forms of identification is just a driver's license. Is that correct?
You don't even have to show a driver's license. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, that is true. But that's true. But what I was reading, they say that that's an acceptable form of identification. I was reading, but that's a problem, right? Because illegal aliens shouldn't be voting in our elections. We're going to talk about that down the line. That's a threat to our democracy. But yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that. You don't even have to show ID anymore. Yeah,
No,
that's voter
that's why we
suppression,
have
right?
exactly
Yeah,
why we have
yeah,
so much problem with elections in
yeah,
California.
yeah. Terrible, terrible about giving access to driver's licenses to illegal aliens, and also to. I'm just going to go on my speech here because I'm running long. I'm trying to finish up. Uh, these illegal aliens also have access to in-state tuition rates and state financial aid. Um, Also, I don't know if anybody here is familiar, but multiple laws, including Senate Bill 1818 and Assembly Bill 263, protect illegal alien workers from retaliation and discrimination based on immigration status, which to me makes no sense because it's against federal law to knowingly hire or continually employ illegal aliens under the IRCA, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of the 80s. So how do you square that circle? That's weird. And also, too, I don't know if anybody here is familiar. I'm sure you are. California even permits illegal aliens to become law enforcement officers,
That's
which
right.
goes against right, which goes against federal law because if you're not here, if you're an illegal alien, you are not allowed to possess a firearm in this country. So, I mean, that's a problem. So, something to talk to your elected officials about over there. This is terrible. Here's some proposed benefits in your state that are either pending or have been considered. Housing assistance, Assembly Bill 1840 was proposed in 2023. It passed the legislature. It would have given, this is just crazy. It would have offered interest-free loans of up to $150,000 for home purchases to illegal aliens. Luckily, it was vetoed by Governor Newsom. So, luckily, that happened. Unemployment benefits, Senate Bill 227 in 2023. It would have granted, unemployment benefits to illegal aliens, which makes no sense. They're not supposed to work, but they're granted unemployment benefits. That's a paradox. But it would have costed it was going to estimate a cost of 356 million or so roughly dollars per year annually. So it has not been enacted yet, but we'll see. And also food assistance programs. CalFresh, California's version of SNAP, because it's against federal law for illegal aliens to receive federal benefits for these programs. But California was going to do it on an in-state basis. As of now, the bill is dead, but it can be revived and reconsidered in the future. These benefits are obviously expensive. FAIR's 2023 cost study for the state of California, we estimate that illegal aliens pose a tax burden in California of $30.9 billion per year in your state. This amounts to a financial, it's insane. And that's 2023. That's before the 2024 surges of illegal immigration like we talked about. So that number is even higher. We're going to be doing updates shortly at FAIR. Orlean, when we get that update, I'm going to send you everything we got so you can distribute it amongst your members so you can be up to date. So I'll do that.
Thank you. That'd be appreciated.
Of course. But I just want to put this more locally to everybody in this call. This amounts to a financial burden per year of $2,340 per California household. So that's over $2,000 for every household in California has to sustain this. That's not right.
Wow.
That's bills. That's life. And California is such an expensive, high tax state. So that money goes a long way in your state. So that's a problem. And I just want to say this. Let's we talk about the finance. Let's talk about crime here in your state, which is big. As a sanctuary state, California is undermining federal law as outlined in Arizona, the United States. And it's enabling illegal alien crime. I want everybody to be clear on this call. Sanctuary policies are sanctuaries for illegal alien criminals, and they irresponsibly expose all residents of the state, legal, illegal immigrants, even other illegal aliens, and American citizens to preventable harm. Sanctuary jurisdictions frequently release dangerous convicted felons, illegal alien felons. This includes rapists, murderers, pedophiles, thieves, everything, armed robbers, into the general population. And I just want to outline a few egregious examples from just this year. There's, Arlene, there's examples forever. But just from this year, I found some stories and I compiled them for you just from this year, just from a couple months ago even. An illegal alien from the Philippines was arrested in Los Angeles in June of this year by ICE for convictions including sexual penetration with a foreign object with force and assault with intent to commit rape. His criminal history, mind you, these people have criminal histories. They shouldn't have criminal histories. They should do one crime. First of all, they shouldn't even be here. But even if they're here, let's say if they get through, one crime, out the door, bye-bye, shouldn't be here. But this individual had a criminal history that included theft, assault, and burglary. And a Mexican illegal alien was arrested just at these anti-ICE protests just recently, in June, for attempted murder after throwing a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement during those riots in Los Angeles. He had previously been deported and had a criminal record from 2024. So wow. We're seeing that too. They're deported and they're coming back because if we're not enforcing our borders, people are just going to take advantage of them. If you have an open door in your house, you're an easy picking for a robbery. So a Mexican illegal alien this year with convictions in Los Angeles was arrested by ICE for attempted second-degree murder, robbery, assault with a firearm on a peace officer, burglary, and cocaine-related crimes. This year, an illegal alien from India who overstayed his visa. By the way, that's also a problem. We don't hear about that enough in the news. Visa overstays are a big percentage of total illegal aliens. He was arrested by ICE. His criminal history included 12 arrests from 2013 to 2021 across multiple states for violent misdemeanors, including assault with a deadly weapon, battery with serious bodily injury, stalking, robbery, and the intent to terrorize. There's so many. This is just from this year. This is from a couple months. 3 Georgia nationals were arrested after allegedly breaking into a Los Angeles home. They burglarized the residence. They beat up the person, the homeowner, who I don't necessarily know if they were the homeowner, but the person in the home. They beat that individual up. They tied that victim up, and they ended up beating that victim to death. According to ICE, one of the suspects had overstayed his tourist visa, and the other 2 had been released into the country after entering illegally. One with a $3,000 immigration bond, and the other with the promise of a later check-in with ICE. So he promised, I'll check in with ICE. Don't worry. I'm good. I'm a good person. By the way, he never did that. He never checked in, which a lot of these individuals do. That's why we have to get rid of these backlogs. It's so important because these individuals don't even show up to their court hearings. So that's obviously a problem. And I have a question for everybody in this chat here. How many more violent crimes do we need to endure before we wake up and we demand a change from our elected officials? While American people are being robbed, raped, and murdered, elected officials, through their endorsement of sanctuary policies, are putting American lives in danger just to secure votes, to virtue signal, to make themselves seem like they're more virtuous and sensitive and progressive than other people, or just to placate their special interest donors that line their pocketbooks. American neighborhoods deserve safety, not sanctuary for foreign lawbreakers. Point blank, I want everybody here to take this home. We all hear, I've heard people, when I've talked to people, they've argued and said, oh, well, American citizens are more violent than immigrants. I'm sure people have heard that. They're more violent. Now, mind you, I question the validity of those studies because I've seen studies that actually go against those analyses. But regardless, even if that was true, which I don't think it is, but even if it was, every crime committed by an illegal alien is a wholly preventable crime. If we already have so much crime in this country, which we do, why are we importing more crime? How does that serve the national interest? We don't have to take these people in. But our elected officials are gaslighting us and making it seem like we have to take these people in. So don't fall for it. Every crime committed by an illegal alien never needed to happen if we just enforced federal immigration law, period. End of sentence. Okay, looking forward. Oh, I should have had that up. I'm sorry. But okay, looking forward. Where do we go from here? Just because we're seeing immigration victories at the federal, state, and local levels, this is not a mission accomplished moment. Just because the Laken Riley Act was passed, or the Big Beautiful Bill Act, or whatever's being passed, those are all great, and I love them. But I cannot stress this enough. This is not a mission accomplished moment. The numbers are down of total immigration as a result of good policy decisions, but I want to warn everybody on this call. There's going to be plenty of more lawsuits to fend off. District judges, federal district judges, are going to issue blockings of rulings. They're going to issue nationwide injunctions, and they're going to try to stop it at the judicial level. NGOs that facilitate mass immigration and government agencies are going to re-strategize and come up with new game plans to further their pro-immigration agendas. Countries are not going to cooperate in taking back their citizens, so that's going to be a problem. Sanctuary supporting politicians, like the many that reside in California, are going to actively resist federal laws and decrees. Protests are going to rage across the country, like we're seeing in California and Los Angeles. Media outlets are going to continue to push divisive and inaccurate narratives. They're going to label people like me and other people on this call as, racist, nativist, violent nativists, and xenophobes, or whatever term they want to use. Those are just, ad hominem attacks. They're logical fallacies. They don't address the merit and the logic of our arguments. And the media is going to push those arguments. You can't back down. You cannot have fear in your heart. You have to go faithfully and powerfully forward with what you believe is true for the good continuance of this nation. And, multinational criminal organizations are going to look to find new ways to smuggle drugs, weapons, and humans. Humans are trafficked into the United States. They're going to find new ways to do it. And besides, if any of these changes that we've talked about are not codified into federal statute, then any subsequent administration can rescind them with the stroke of a pen. Trump did it to the previous administration, Biden did it to Trump, and so on and so forth. So this needs to be put into federal law. And if it's put into federal law, our elected officials need to pursue the enforcement of those federal laws. So that's also important. We can't, remain, what's the term? Quiet at the wheel, or whatever term you want to use. We have to actively enforce law in this country. Because what use is of a law if it's not actively enforced, right? So, okay. I want to give everybody here some actionable objectives for the Congress to pursue. First, secure the border permanently, finish the wall, fund more Border Patrol agents, and give ICE the tools to detain and deport unlawfully present aliens. Second, we need mandatory E-Verify nationwide so employers cannot hire illegal workers and undercut American labor. I want everybody here to be clear. That's a lie. They say things in the media, oh, these immigrants are doing jobs that Americans can't do or they won't do. That's malarkey. Illegal aliens are not the lion's share percentage of any industry in this country. And Americans did those jobs prior to the mass influx of these types of immigrants we've seen post the 1965 Hart-Celler Act. So, for example, I read a report recently. There was a bunch of deportations of worksite raids in Nebraska, the employment offices for these jobs are being overflowed by people looking for those jobs. So what is it? These people want to do the jobs. They're just not being given the opportunity to do the jobs because employers are giving these jobs to illegal aliens either through fraud or through under the table compensation so that they can take those savings and wages and line their own profits and make themselves richer. So so the employer is gaining, the illegal alien is gaining, but you know who's being left out of that equation? The American worker. And that needs to stop. We need to promote policies that cut the jobs magnet that incentivizes illegal migration. And we need more worksite raids. We need more worksite raids in places on places like Home Depots or Lowe's or agricultural fields, fashion districts, like we're seeing across the country. We need more of those because those are good. Third, no more sanctuary cities. We need to starve them of federal funds and pass laws that penalize jurisdictions that shield criminal aliens from deportation. And if an elected official wants to, abet and abet federal immigration enforcement, they need to be held accountable by the law. Like we're seeing with that incident that happened in Newark with the mayor and with that other representative. I don't know what her position is, her title. But if those people want to go and stop ICE from doing their job as outlined in federal statute, they need to be held accountable. Like the previous administration said, no one is above the law. And that is true. No one is above the law. We're all equal under the law in this nation. Just because someone's a senator or a governor or an assemblyman doesn't mean they can operate in impunity in this nation, especially when it comes to federal immigration law. So, fourth, we need to reform legal immigration. The current system, I'm going to go a little bit here. This is so important. We all talk about illegal immigration. Legal immigration is also something that's super, super important. We need to talk about it here. The current system admits about 1 million people per year. This is often without regard to things like skills or proper vetting, or, in my opinion, most importantly, assimilation. We don't talk about that enough. Assimilation is so important. We believe at FAIR that we should cut total immigration to a more manageable level that aligns with historic norms. That's about 300,000 people per year. And when we let people into the country, we should prioritize those who benefit our economy and embrace American values. All of this being done through a meritocratic framework. For decades, fraud and abuse in the work visa programs have taken hundreds of thousands of jobs from American citizens. Companies as sponsors, because these companies sponsor legal immigrants to come in through the H-1B program, which we're going to talk about briefly, they use these programs to replace U.S. workers with foreign workers, whom they can pay less, treat worse, and in turn, drive up profits for their businesses. Here are some quick examples. In 2024, Google laid off 951 U.S. employees while hiring over 1,000 new H-1B workers. Apple laid off 735 workers, but hired 864 new H-1B workers. And in a 2-year period from 2022 to 2024, Microsoft laid off 3,426 workers and hired 3,259 new H-1B workers during the same period. So we're being told by these highly skilled employers that there's a shortage, but we're laying off vast swaths of people and then replacing them with foreign workers. I mean, I don't know about if we were having worker shortages, I don't know why we're laying people off. We heard that, I don't know if everybody's familiar with that story a couple of years back from Disney. Disney workers being fired and being forced to train their foreign worker replacements. So not only are you fired, but you have to train your replacement. So you're good enough to train a replacement, but you're not good enough to have the job. That's a paradox. That's not right. Something is afoot. Like I said, they're paying these people less, oftentimes 20% below the market rate. They're treating them worse, and they're hanging the sponsorship over their head and saying, hey, behave correctly, otherwise we can pull the sponsorship. So it's almost like they're a form of, paid indentured servitude here. And, these corporate bigwigs are just driving up profits for themselves. The American worker, people like my family, working class people, are being left out of the equation. And it's not right. And here's how we solve that problem, specifically with the H-1B visa program. We need to eliminate the random lottery nature of that program. Because I don't know if anybody here is familiar, that program is not a merit-based program. It is done via lottery through sponsorship. So we hear in the news that, oh, they're the best and the brightest. If it's a lottery system, then by its very definition, it cannot be best and brightest because it's a lottery system. We need to replace the system and make it a merit-based system that rewards higher wages and attracts the best and the brightest around the world. Because we do want the best and the brightest. We want great people. We want Albert Einsteins. We want people that come in and do a great job for our country and fully assimilate and become a part of the American cultural tapestry. And that, they leave their foreign allegiances behind and say, no, I'm not from Germany. I'm not from Italy. I'm not from China. I'm not from India. That's the old me. I'm here. I'm naturalized. Guess what? When someone asks me what I am, I'm an American. We need to hear that more. I'm an American. So that's important. Okay, we need to enhance wage requirements to prevent employers from hiring H-1B workers less than Americans. We need to strengthen the recruiting process of that program. And here is how we do that actionably. We need to require in law that these employers demonstrate that they actively sought to recruit American workers first and offer them the jobs before hiring H-1B workers. If there is truly a shortage, they need to demonstrate that. They need to show, listen, we tried and got all these we've had a job application out for 2 years or a year or whatever number we need. No Americans either, qualify or even applied for the job. So we're forced to go outsource to a foreign worker. But currently there's no law that states that. So they're just saying it with no demonstrable evidence to prove it. So let's hold their feet to the fire. Show us the evidence. If you can show us the evidence, we'll go along with your story. No evidence, no story, hire Americans. We need to end the dual intent nature of the H-1B visa program. The program is supposed to be temporary, but it's being used as a pathway to citizenship. So that's a problem. We need to end that and make it back to its original intent, temporary, to come in and to fulfill a shortage. Once that shortage is filled, and then we can get Americans for that role. These people, once their visa expires, they need to go home. They need to go back to their home countries. And we need to deter fraud and abuse. We need to do this through robust oversight at the federal level and the state level, hopefully. State and local, I believe state, local, and federal should work together in a well-run country. Nullification is, when state and federal entities are operating against each other. That was a main reason for the Civil War. A house divided upon itself cannot stand. So we believe that the state, the federal, and the local level should work in unison, that we can all enforce proper law that abides by the U.S. Constitution. We need to hold these abusers, these employers that abuse this program, we need to hold them accountable that if they do any immigration infractions, they need to be taken out of the H-1B program. If you make, it's common sense. If you mess up and you abuse the program, you should not be granted the privilege of that program. So these are all actionable steps to solve that problem. Okay, back to my original thing here. We need to. My apologies. My notes kind of messed up here. We need to fix birthright citizenship. We talked about that briefly. This is expensive. FAIR estimates that the K through 12 education of illegal alien children, which I always do these little offshoots because immigration is such a. I've worked in so many different, special interests, public policy positions during my tenure in politics, and I'll tell you right now, immigration is a universe. It touched on every aspect of American life, and I highly recommend everybody If you get involved in immigration, you'll never be bored because there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. But there was a Supreme Court case called Plyer v. Doe, which mandated that illegal aliens, the children of illegal aliens, are mandated by law that they should receive a public K through 12 education. Okay, that equates to roughly $70 billion per year from the US taxpayer. And just to put it locally here, illegal alien households add 1,000, now mind you, this is 2023 numbers, it's gone up, over 1 million students to California schools. So it's obviously expensive, billions and billions of dollars. We need to protect our democracy. That's another thing that Congress should do. We need to reinstate a citizenship question on the census so illegal aliens do not skew congressional apportionment or vote in the Electoral College. Congress must pass the SAVE Act, which I don't know if anybody is familiar with the SAVE Act. Basically, it just says if you want to vote in a federal election, you have to show an ID, whether that be a real ID compliant identification, a birth certificate, or a passport. So we believe it fair that should happen. You should have ID. You should show that you should demonstrate, right? We talk about demonstration. You should demonstrate that you're a citizen, and then you should be allowed to vote, especially now that we have millions and millions of people in this country illegally. So especially in California, this is a great way to vet and make sure that we're securing our democracy. We believe that American voices should not be diluted by non-citizens. It demeans the importance of citizenship and waters down the incentive for illegal immigrants to become fully fledged American citizens. If they get all the benefits of American citizenry without being American citizens, why would they become American citizens? There'd be no incentive. So we need to change that. The title of American citizen should be something that gives you some power in your nation. You should stand out. You should be exceptional within your nation. So keep that in mind. We must stop the taxpayer bleed as a result of illegal immigration. According to FAIR's 2023 cost study, in totality across the country, all 50 states, illegal immigration is costing U.S. taxpayers a whopping $150.7 billion every single year. So that's terrible, right? And in addition to these important measures that we should ask of our Congress, on the local level here, I challenge everybody here to do some things that really can make a difference, maybe not statewide, but wherever you're residing within the state, on the local level. This can mean things like testifying at a local city council or town board meeting, signing petitions, and attending peaceful, I emphasize that here, peaceful protests, because like I said previously, if you attend non-peaceful protests, violent protests, or espouse violent rhetoric, the other side is going to use that against you, and they're going to say, see, they are deranged, they are insane, look, don't listen to them, they're insane, they're violent, they're anti-American, they're racist, they're Nazis, whatever term they want to use. Don't give them the ammunition. Don't give them, the ammunition they need to shoot us. So always peaceful, always aligned with the law. We need to post facts and figures on social media. X.com and Instagram and whatever, but specifically X and Facebook. These are like the in the history of in human history. These are the most powerful microphones for getting your opinions across, to getting your voice heard in human history. So use them. An X.com account can reach millions and millions and millions of people. Even a small post, even if you have a small number of subscribers, a good post can reach millions of people. Use it. If you don't have an X account, get an X account and state your opinions. Let people know. I always tell people, even if you feel alone in a state like California, you're not alone. There's plenty of people within your state that agree with you, and there's plenty of people around the country. And I travel the country that agree with you. And they exist in other sanctuary states like California. and they agree with you and they have passion and they're just looking for people to network with. And that's another thing that is important. When you join these Facebook groups and such, you're networking. And as we network, we're consolidating our power. We're inherently gaining strength. It's a force multiplier effect. And it's a great way to accumulate power on the in the state and local levels. I highly, highly recommend it. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody here, it's an Eagle Forum of California webinar, but find people. If you know someone that thinks like you, invite them to things like this. Say, hey, we have a great group of guys and gals here. Come on in. Let's talk about it. We bring great speakers in. We have interesting debates. Bring them in. And you never know. You can gain a lot of power that way. Change a lot of minds. Another big thing, volunteer to work on a local campaign. I've worked on several campaigns. I always enjoyed it. I met a lot of great people. That's another way to network. I highly recommend it. If you have not volunteered for a local campaign, do it. And also, too, I emphasize this enough. Run for local office. Why not? Nothing is stopping you. If you qualify under the parameters to run, do it. If you feel like your politicians aren't doing what you need them to do, run and beat them in the electoral sense. Then you can gain the power. You have the right. You have the microphone. I highly recommend it. Okay. There's a variety of bills going through the state legislature. I'm not going to go about them here. There's so many. If you're interested in learning about these specific bills, or you want me to help you, or what have you, any assistance you may need on a specific bill that you are targeting yourself, FAIR in particular, we're targeting a bunch. We're targeting state bills across the country. So if you see anything that goes across on the local level, please bring it to my attention. And I would love to maybe even offer some testimony, go to a hearing, support you in any way that we can. We would love to help. We're always happy to do it. And I'm just going to leave you with this. This has been a long speech. I want to leave you with this. Securing our borders, asserting our national sovereignty, preserving our American society, and keeping American communities safe should be our number one priority. It is our duty for future generations of Americans. And we must always remember that if we lose our borders, we lose our nation. And with that, that's my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions if there's time. If anybody wants to shoot me an email, my email is on the shared screen. Shoot me an email. Let me know how I did for my speech. Tell me if you enjoyed it. I'm always happy to talk. Thank you. I'm going to stop
Thank
sharing.
you so much. This was just excellent, Nicholas. And thank you for enlightening us. I learned so much. We've had FAIR speak for us probably at various times over the past 20 years, and I've always learned so much. So you essentially are the representative to go out and speak to groups like us. Is that right? Is that what it means to be the field representative?
Yep.
Well, that's wonderful. And tell people what FAIR actually stands for.
The Federation for American Immigration Reform.
That's right.
Yeah, and I was the field rep. Now I'm the field manager. So what I do is I actually manage activist groups across the country, and I act as their liaison to DC, and I offer them any assistance they may need. And so as a manager, I'm very blessed. I'm just going to say this right now. I love my job. I'm blessed, and I love what I do, and I meet great people like you, Orlean, and all over the country, and the people in this chat, in this webinar, and I'm just saying I'm blessed. And like I said, I can't stress this enough. If you haven't been researching about immigration, I highly recommend it. It is probably the most important issue in the country right now. It affects national security, the military, economic, everything like I talked about today, public elections, crime, everything. So culture, everything. So please get informed on the issue of immigration. I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you so much. I think people have been really motivated to do that after hearing you tonight. We have like 5 minutes left. Any questions that anyone would like to? Oh, David has a question. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Orlean, and Nicholas. Excellent. As you were speaking, and this is to Orlean. I was thinking that Nicholas or Fair would make for an excellent speaker, whether it's for our Constitution Day in September or our national convention this year or some year, or our state conference perhaps next year in the spring. Something maybe for us to think on, Orlean.
Yes, definitely.
I would love
We-
to.
The
Wonderful.
National Eagle Forum is actually holding their their national convention in Washington, D.C. in September. So you're right there, available.
Yeah,
If
just
you
send
don't
me the
mind,
invite.
I will highly recommend you.
Yeah, please send me the invite. I would love to. I would love it. So awesome idea, David. Yeah, please.
Great. We'll plant the seed of
Anybody in the
thought
call?
to Chris and our national leadership team.
Yes, we will do that.
So my question is, could be one of many, just a common observation with the question. I'm thinking of Kamala Harris is running for campaign for president. And it's remarkable that here she is 3 generations into the country, both of her parents born outside of the country. So let's say she's, I guess, second generation American in both regards. And here she can run for the highest office in the land. That's remarkable. I can't think of a country that would allow for that in its bylaws, constitution, or culturally. I have, with my 4 lines ancestrally, I have probably 30 generations in country. And I would think that sort of, I'm not trying to appeal to nativism, but I would think the longer one is here, quite likely and reasonably, the more one would have invested in the country and maybe more knowledge and wisdom and culture one would have, seeped in by osmosis over that long period of time. But really, the thrust of my question is this: I'm thinking, with the recent ICE raids and all of this going on, what country would tolerate people from another country coming in? Like, would Mexico tolerate me and a bunch of people like me going to Mexico City and flying the American flag and causing all kinds of havoc, and then telling Mexico that it needs to change to conform to comply with my wishes and my needs and my thoughts and thinking about how Mexico should run Mexico? What is it that I think it's a kind of, we think of Trump derangement syndrome. I think it's a type of derangement where people think and feel and act that way. Do you have anything to comment along those lines?
Yes. That's great observations, David. And the answer to your question is, what country would allow what's happening in Los Angeles to occur within their borders? And I'll give you the answer: no sane country.
Indeed.
A sane country does not allow for people who are supposed to be, I'm just going to say straight up, when I did an oath to the United States military, I made an oath to defend the America and the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And a lot of these people in our nation who have on paper that they are American don't bear that self-identity. They're only here because their parents came here illegally. So right away they're coming in, they're flouting federal law, they're trespassing. Really, at the end of the day, this is a mass, widespread territorial trespass. It is a non-acknowledgement of territorial sovereignty. And if you actually talk to a lot of, you specifically said Mexico, if you actually talk to a lot of Mexicans, specifically in places like where you're residing in California or in Texas or in the in Southwest, they'll tell you straight up, oh no, this is Mexico. The Americans took this land from us. This is our native land. This is the land of the Aztecas. This is our land. They'll tell you this is the land of La Raza. I'm sure people heard La Raza. Mm-hmm. This is, you heard that. They'll say, oh, the Americans, they stole our land. They took our land from our people. And we're just here to take it back. How can you kick us off of a land that is our ancestral homeland for thousands of years? How can you? Well, they have those ideologies, which in America, people have a right to express their opinions. We all know that here and we accept that. The question is, do we have to put up with people who so it's so complicated. It's so complicated. I'm so sorry. But like, for example, like visa holders, like I know Marco Rubio, right? Marco Rubio stated that in a congressional hearing that a visa is not a right, it's a privilege. A lot of these people, it's a privilege. They have a right to protest, right? They have a right if they say I hate America, they have that right. It's been adjudicated in the Supreme Court. It is what it is. The question is it in our interest as Americans? Do we have to put up with it? Right? And some actionable ways that we can solve this problem is to put it to codify into federal statute and birthright citizenship. That would solve a lot of these problems right off the bat. That if someone comes in here and goes through the process of legal permanent residence, lawful permanent residence, and they go through the leaps and the holes and such and the hoops, or they're just American citizens, that would solve a lot of these problems. Because you have to think, somebody that doesn't respect the territorial sovereignty of the country, are they willing to assimilate? Doesn't seem so, especially in places like California. When I was in college, I went to Pace University, which was a very liberal, very progressive, very leftist institution. And almost every class, they'd go around the room and say, which I don't know why they did this, makes no sense, but they would go around and say, okay, where are you from? What's your identity? And I found myself, I kind of had an epiphany because I wasn't necessarily fully into politics at that time, the way I am now. But every student, now mind you, they speak English, they were born here, right? They have all whatever, the American, whatever you want to call it. But they would say, how do you identify? I identify as a Russian. Oh, I identify as a Cameroonian, Cameroon. I identify as an El Salvadorian. I identify as a Mexican. I identify as a Mexican. Whatever. How can a nation like that sustain itself? How can this a tapestry and multiculturalism only works when there is a level of assimilation? My family is from Italy. They came here through Ellis Island. They came here. They assimilated. They celebrated American holidays. They learned the American language. They adopted the American way of being. They taught their kids English. They did not teach their kids Italian. On my father's side, they're Germans. They did not teach their kids German. They said, if you want to speak German, go live in Germany. If you want to speak Italian, you go live in Italy. It's things like that, which we should be societally enforcing and socially enforcing through soft power. A lot of mechanisms in regards to soft power that we can do. But we should be pursuing that in America. And like Trump did, for example, of making English the official language. That's big. That's big. That's good. That promotes social cohesion. Ending birthright citizenship, like I said, promotes social cohesion and promotes proper assimilation. And also, too, if we just disincentivize these widespread mass amounts of people coming, we can avoid things like ethnic enclaves, where you get, say if you get like a large swath of people, 60,000 people from Honduras go to a little area, right? Or Haiti or wherever they come from. 60,000 people, let's just say Haiti. They speak French, Haitian French. They have the Haitian way of being, Haitian Manual, the Haitian culture, right? They start businesses in that little ethnic enclave. They operate as they would in their home country in America. Why would they assimilate? What reason would they have to assimilate? What they're going to do is they're going to give each other jobs, and it's going to create this little ethnic enclave. Immigration only works when it's fully vetted and it's done at a manageable level. When it's done on the small scale, it's like having I always try to bring things back to like the common sense working man definition or working man analogy. It's like if you have like a party, right? You can manage the people coming into your party if there's 5 people, right? And you invite these people, right? Or the people that you invite those people, right? Say if you want 5 people to show up, let's just say 7 or 8 show up. You can manage that as a good host, right? You can manage that party. Now, mind you, say if you invite 5 people And then 30 people from down the road you don't know, you didn't invite, they show up to the party. And those 30 people that you don't know, we're talking about things like chain migration here, right? They invite, each one of them invites 3 people. Now you got 90 extra people coming in. So you had a party of 5, you can tolerate 10, you have over 100. What do you think is going to happen to the dynamic of your party? Do you think the music you want to play is going to continue to play? The food that you the food that you have food that you made for the party is going to feed everyone? No. There's going to be problems. There's going to be resource allocation issues. There's going to be cultural assimilation issues. There's going to be crime. Maybe that guy from down the road doesn't get along with one of your friends that you invited. Now they're fighting at your party. Now the cops are there. Now there's a gun drawn. Now there's somebody being stabbed. It's mayhem. It's bedlam. Why do we have to put up with it? And I hate to say this, but David, this would all be solved. This problems would all be solved if we just enforced federal law. It's kind of like people want like a magic pill in these issues, but if we just enforce federal law and do these small little things, like I said, like E-Verify, like I talked about at the end of my speech, mandatory E-Verify, ending birthright citizenship, just disincentivizing, taking away all the incentives that incentivize illegal immigration and immigration in its totality, and providing for mechanisms where we can provide for proper assimilation. Like, for example, when people take the test for naturalization, the civics test, right? I believe under the Biden administration, they cut that test in half. Why did they cut it in half? I just don't understand how it's in the national interest to reduce vetting measures. So, in other words, we need to enhance vetting measures, promote birthright citizenship, and really reclaim in a cultural way through things like X.com and just getting the word out in places like this. And just when you hear someone spout off on things that are contrary to what I'm talking about here, you let them know what I'm telling you now, that just challenge them. Okay, how is that aligned with the national interest? And they might say something like, oh, America is a nation of immigrants. You've heard that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What nation isn't a nation of immigrants? And it's not that America is a nation of immigrants. Immigrants have done great for the country, but previously in our country, we had mechanisms for assimilation. People talk about, and also too, about, mind you, assimilation, we had quotas and there was issues of like that. And also too, total immigration was not anywhere it is today. From all corners of the world, vetting was done. On Ellis Island, people were being vetted for tuberculosis and diseases and criminal records. Of course, there was fraud. That happens. It always is going to happen in every system, unless you deny total immigration, which we're not advocating for at FAIR. We just believe in lowering it to the most manageable, the lowest level, to where we can allow for immigration, but also manage. But, during Ellis Island, I believe the highest number in that era was only 900,000 people, which was a massive spike from the previous years. It was a massive spike. And then it went, immigration historically has been ups and downs. We all know that it's been ups and downs. So the other side will say, oh no, we've always had like this level of immigration. That's gaslighting. That's just not true. We are seeing unprecedented levels of immigration. And like I said, it's easier to vet people when, like we have, I think, 340 million people in this country, right? Or something like that. If we have almost 20 million illegal aliens, that's like what, 5% of the population? Back in those 1920s and such, and these people, mind you, these people weren't even illegal. They were vetted. The total immigrant population was way less. So, it's a matter of numbers. It's a matter of who we are as Americans and fighting and declaring and just saying we are Americans for these reasons. We have historical claim to this land. What you talked about, David, like a generational understanding of history in terms of what it means to be an American. And I don't think it's nativist to say, oh, my people have been here for generations. That's just a proper understanding of your lineage, history, and if we don't know where we come from, we are like rudderless boats that get swept along with the seas, and that's why there's been a widespread movement to change the history of our country, because when we change the history, we change the context and the frame in which we operate in the present. So it's like a widespread gaslight. It's a widespread illusion that we're being forced to understand. And David, your understanding of your lineage is actually refreshing, because that's good. The people that existed in the founding of our America they were there at the founding of America. This nation, its institutions, was founded under English common law, for example. Christian values that come from a European understanding of Christian values. England, Northern European values, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's our founding. That's the founding historical understanding of our nation. That can change over time, which it has, but there's nothing to be ashamed about. Is there anything I didn't answer, David? I
no, good points. I like your party
That was
invitation.
very, very comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
I try to hit
Thank
different
you.
points.
And I totally agree with what is happening today. As a former school teacher, we see that American history is being totally rewritten. When you're going to take over another country, as the communists would like to, they like to destroy the history of that country. And I think that's what we really see is going on today as well. And of course, they love to bring in lots of other immigrants to water down the culture and water down the beliefs.
Yeah,
It's very
and
true.
also, David, I just remembered something that you said about Mexico, about going to Mexico. I know you're not just, singling out Mexico. I know you're just saying like another nation, but you use Mexico as an example. But I'm going to say something interesting here. And you mentioned Mexico. I did some research as I was talking. I multitask good. I can talk and I can research. And I want you to know this. According to Article 33 of the Mexican Constitution, it is illegal for foreigners to participate in political protests. This includes things like political activities, including demonstrations that are deemed to interfere with Mexico's internal policies.
Wow.
So there it is. I mean, now let me ask you this: why we have a constitution that can be amended? Maybe that's something to talk about. Maybe there needs to be a national. We're talking about, David, like conversations amongst Americans. Maybe that's a national conversation we need to have. That maybe that's a good amendment to pursue. Now, mind you, I know that amending the U.S. Constitution is a lofty goal. It's a hard process. It's not easy, but it's just, every burning fire starts off as a spark, and that's why I keep trying to emphasize. We need to get sparks out there and tell people that these things are options. And why not? Let's have a conversation. Why should, even just ask the question, why should foreigners, people who aren't here legally, come to our country and engage in political activities which undermine national sovereignty and the American political process and its institutions? Why not? So, and we see a real world example from another nation, David. You mentioned another nation, and what a coincidence. The one nation you mentioned, Article 33 of their Constitution clearly outlines what you were talking about.
Yeah, I think we're on to
Amazing.
Something to talk about. So,
Yes, that's really good. Well, if no one has any other question, we kind of have gone over a little bit of our time. Sometimes this Zoom actually cuts us off at a certain time. I'm glad that didn't happen. But this has been a wonderful program. We so appreciate your good information, Nicholas. And do you like to go by Nicholas or Nick?
you can call me Nick. That's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has just been so valuable. I will close us if that's all right. Our Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this evening that we've been able to have Nicholas Softy with us. And his wonderful organization that he represents. We're thankful for the valuable information he has given us. Please help us to use all the good points that he had for putting this information to use and to pass it on to others. Help us to restore the great, wonderful nation we once had and the freedom and the forms of justice that we used to have before this mass illegal immigration came in. Please help us to be strong and determined. Help us to represent the organization of Eagle Forum, which we hold so dear. Help us to stand for all the good virtues that our founding fathers brought to this country. And please bless Nicholas that he will continue to heal and help him to reach many others with this valuable message. And we ask protection on him and all of those who were part of this webinar this evening. We ask this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.